Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, mountain back to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Boakai, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talk about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information, history, talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this special edition of Focus on Liberia we call Between the Headlines. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Well, elections are over. President-elect Joseph Newman Boakai is going to take seat January 22. And so there is, as we can see, enormous challenges awaiting President Boakai and his team, and there are also opportunities. Already, the country is in not so much good shape. So President Boakai and his team are expected to hit the ground running. Ahead of that, we have opportunities, we have challenges. So what are some of those opportunities and challenges that are awaiting the Joseph Newman Boakai administration? We're going to delve into some of these to give our audience an idea of what are those things that we should be expecting as Liberians. Because they say pregnancy doesn't go behind always going from. So we expect these things to come as soon as the president-elect takes seat. With me to discuss all this, I have our FOL public policy analyst and also the presenter of the Liberia History Channel called Family. Call, welcome to the show.
Sorry, I had the mute button on. It's always my pleasure to be here, Dennis, and among your distinguished guests.
Thank you. And one of those distinguished guests is Dr. Abdullah Dukle. He's regular here and active panelist on Tough Talking Thursday. Dr. Duke, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis, and I'm happy to join this list of very, very high-level people. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me welcome joining us from the nation's capital, Monrovia, is Councillor Kabina Janet, former Justice Minister, also former Justice, the Supreme Court Justice. Councillor Janet, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very particularly pleased to be with you this evening.
Let me also welcome Mr. Thomas B. Kane, panelist here. Mr. Kane, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be here.
We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe as we await Mr. Mohammed Sharif, our FOL political analyst, and Admeke Salif, our governance advisor, so we can discuss. Please, if you have not done so already, share the show, invite a friend, and let's get started. So, I was thinking that, well, things are not so great in Liberia, And so the president, there's no honeymoon, and we will do our best not to even allow that. So the president or the newly elected president should hit the ground running. But there are opportunities, there are challenges. Today, President-elect Joseph Newman Boakai delivered his first major address to the nation. And before we even start the show, I want you to take a listen.
Meanwhile, in recent years, there have been accounts of several mysterious deaths and disappearances. Over the period of the campaign and the struggle, many Liberians, some of our own partisans, have lost their lives. We regret the loss of our compatriots, and we offer our prayers for the peaceful repose of their souls. Which is why our tribute to the families of those who lost their valuable lives is to embark on a drastic security and justice reform and to bring relief to the families of many victims, but also to lay the pathway to achieving a society where the rule of law reigns. On Monday, November 2023, our nation was gripped by a tragic event that occurred at the party's headquarters, which led to the loss of valuable life and caused serious injuries of our partisans. Our partisans were peacefully celebrating the announcement of the final result of the run-of elections. On yesterday, November 21, 2023, we visited our wounded partisans at the John F. Kennedy Hospital and sympathized with the families of our partisans who lost their lives and assured them that a thorough investigation will be conducted by the Liberian National Police and justice will be dispensed. We extend our deepest condolences to the families and the loved ones of those who lost their lives. The Unity Party and all its alliance members are asked to begin a period of 3 days mourning for the victims. We want to thank the doctors and the nurses at GFK and other places who were providing them care. Finally, as we look forward to taking the reins of the state authority on the 22nd of January 2024, I call Liberians to join and work with us as we lead the rebuilding of our country. The progress of this country is undermined by the lack of sound and honest leadership. It is this leadership we promise the Liberian people as we together build a country with a vision aimed at promoting functional and equitable society for generations to come. Join me as we begin our journey together on the difficult and rocky road to develop our country. Let us resolve to think Liberia, love Liberia, and build a great Liberia.
Right? That was President-elect Joseph Newman Boakai laying it out there for you. So I want us to start by saying, what are the opportunities awaiting? And I know we're going to go to the challenges, but I want the sweet part first. Let's start with the opportunities. With this, let me start with Mr. Kane.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dennis. I think there are a lot of opportunities that are awaiting the new government. The first thing is that Ambassador Joseph Numa Boakai has been announced as the winner of the 2023 elections. That gives him now, over the next 2 months or so, the constitutional authority to be the president of Liberia, and for him to actually change the position that he referenced in 2017. So he has now been moved from being a car that is parked to a race car on the road. And the Constitution backs him fully as of January 22 when the inauguration takes place. So I think in overall, that is an opportunity that he has to be able to actually put into place a government that will help him achieve all of the dreams that he has had for Liberia. Over the years, he has spoken about Liberia lacking leadership, Liberia not being a country that is equitable, even on the campaign trail when he went to Cape Mount and other places. He said our resources were leaving the country and the people weren't really benefiting from those resources. So I think the first opportunity that the Unity Party has is to come back to power and to be able to provide leadership. So that's an opportunity in itself. The other opportunity I do see for the Unity Party, and not only Ambassador Boakai, is that after the Civil War, the Unity Party introduced a lot of reforms in Liberia, whether it was public sector reform, whether it was governance reform, whether it was land reforms, and not much of progress was made on those reforms over the past 6 years. So I think it's an opportunity to come back, to come and assess where the WEA government stopped, and to pick up from there to be able to move forward. So I think the first thing you have to do is to put a very competent team in place to be able to clearly identify where the low-hanging fruits will be, and then to pick up from there to be able to move forward. So I think the opportunities are many. Maybe with time we will go sector by sector to be able to explain that. But I think for the Unity Party to be the first ruling party, I think to come back to power, that is a great history they've set for themselves. That is an opportunity given to them again to be able to prove if they can do better than what they did over the past 12 years.
Thank you. Let me go to Councillor Jane. He was on the campaign trail, and in fact, he participated as a poll watcher and support the president-elect. Councillor Jane, what are the opportunities, especially when we look in your area of expertise?
I think they are enormous, but I agree with Mr. Canada. Primary among these opportunities, in my view, will be that extraordinary opportunity the president has, along with to build, to assemble in my mind a competent team that will begin to look at all of the challenges Liberia is faced with right now. So if you ask me what is it that this is an opportunity to look at the broad spectrum of the Liberian population. And when I'm mentioning this to emphasize the point that we must include the diasporan community in this selection so that we can get the best that God has offered this country, assemble this team, and let that team begin to put together an agenda for renewal. That will be for me the real thing right now. Today was the first time I had opportunity to go and sit with the president-elect for just a couple of minutes. And I was quite impressed with the thought process. The things we can do now, let's not leave it for tomorrow. Let's start now. And I saw some Liberians there, and I was just happy to see them around. And I keep saying, let us make use of the expertise God has blessed Liberia with, which include those of our brethren in the diaspora.
Thank you. Call, what are the opportunities?
Well, we have, there's the old adage that every problem is an opportunity in disguise. So almost everything that is needed to govern a country represents an opportunity. We have an opportunity to reform our education system. We have an opportunity to reform the security sector. We have an opportunity to reform healthcare. We have the opportunity to reform, health, sanitation. Our economy, everything you can think about is an opportunity in Liberia right now. I can't think of anything that is not an opportunity. So, there's a lot of opportunity for us to advance the cause of uplifting our people and bringing our people into a condition where they can thrive and be able to excel and use their God-given talents, to make a better world for Liberians. I mean, we have this beautiful country with all of these resources. Our human capital, some of the most brilliant and gifted people on earth. When given the opportunity, when planted on fertile soil, Liberians excel exponentially. I like to use myself as an example. Just because of opportunity. That's the only thing that separates me from a little girl selling cola in the streets of Monrovia, is opportunity. So we need to make sure that the opportunities that we have to advance ourselves in other places, that we bring those opportunities home for all of our citizens. That is an amazing challenge. It is a call to action. I really, really appreciate what Justice Jana just said about the need to reach out to all of our talent. We have a very small population. A lot of our human capital is outside of the country, and we need to draw upon that. And I also want to say that, Mr. Khanna, I really, most of our people think that this is the first time that a ruling party has come back to power. Liberia's story is so long. It's so long. This is not the first time, but the third time. So the party of Joseph Jenkins Roberts was the Republican Party. They left and they came back right after E.J. Roy. E.J. Roy was the True Whig Party. He was deposed, replaced by the Republicans who came back to power. After James Spriggs Payne, the True Whig Party came back. So we put the Unity Party is actually the third party to leave power and return in Liberian history. And that's important. And these are things that we need to make sure that we know at the top of our heads. As we talk about our country, our story is so long and so beautiful, so powerful and inspirational that we have now an opportunity to manifest Liberia's true destiny, which is to be that shining star on the African continent. And we are able to do that as long as we have the right intentions and the right people in the right places.
Thank you. Mr. Mohammed Sharif, welcome. I know you came in late. That's our colleague, FOL political analyst, the product of Waplo Institute, all the way from Kilipo in River G County. Mr. Sharif, what are the opportunities? On mute, please.
Yeah, I think you're on mute.
Apologize. Thank you for that elaborate intro. Justice Johnny, I'm so happy for you. The injustice done you and Brownie Samoka now. Liberia can now Liberia can now cleanse itself of the sins of the outgoing administration under George Weah, which was very incompetent. And so, of course, thanks for the history that you got into there, because I thought that was important that you got into that history. So thank you very much for that history. And I'll just add to that real quickly that the last sitting president in that regard, we have to go back to 1877. And you mentioned James Spriggs Payne, and he was the last sitting president to be defeated. So George Weah now enters another history, in Liberian history as a sitting president to be defeated. So Dennis, you asked for these opportunities. How about the ready workforce? People are right now with the enthusiasm of the incoming administration in 2000 all across the country. People are ready to work, whether it's in the diaspora or in Liberia. So that's a pool of competent people, the competent workforce that you can tap into if you are Joseph Boakai. So that is a very, very good opportunity to start off, because all around, even though this was a very tight election, but the enthusiasm is there. You can see, you can feel it. The people are ready to get back to work. People are ready to get back to doing the work of the Liberian people business. So that is very important for the new administration to understand and tap into that workforce and that level of enthusiasm. What I was going to also add that I don't think it's too difficult. There's two ways you can look at that. It may not be too difficult to follow behind George Weah because there was not much done. So you can quickly do a lot in a matter of a couple of years, and you can make a vast difference from the previous administration because there was not a lot done under the previous administration. The other way you can look at that also is it's hard to follow behind the administration in view of everything that went wrong. Look at the roads to the southeast. So now Joseph Boakai is going to come in. He's going to come in now and try to first make those roads pliable, not really, building a super highway, but just pliable so that people can transport their goods and services across from Ganta to Zwedru, from Zwedru to Greenville to Harper and Kalipo and all these different places. So when you look at it that way, it's very difficult to follow behind an incompetent administration that had done nothing, all 6 years. And so just right off the top of my head, those are the things that I look for right now.
Thank you. Dr. Dukley. Dr. Duke, let's look at some of the opportunities.
Is it mine or is it everybody slow?
It's you.
Well, I think the best opportunity that comes to anyone is that you have dreamed of doing something all your life and you were sideline, and then you get a chance to be doing it.
Dr. Dukley, can you repeat? We lost you a little bit.
And then 1985, he was already looking at power. So he missed that chance and he said he was on the sideline. 97, he ran against Bacchus Matthew. So he had his eyes on power. He missed that. And then for 12 years, he was vice president. So he's seen at his worst. He knows what is right, what is wrong, and he knows what not to do. That kind of experience that you've been so close to the center of power for so long and lived throughout. And that gave him an opportunity to do something new. And I think, our electorate, we always said we have 65, 35. For him to get these votes, he had to get the numbers from the youth, inspire young people. And that's an opportunity to build a new society. Like Mohammed said, like Ko also said, to build that new energy. There's a new energy now in the country. Young people say, yes, you're old, you're sick, you're this and that, you broke, but we want you to be our leader. And that is a rare opportunity that you have. And I also think that his job may not be that difficult. He was there by, in 2005 when they took over and everything was down zero and he had to, push the things up. Now he's coming back to the same situation where everything has been put down to zero. Every institution in the country, governance has become, there's no confidence between the people and the government. Okay, you say, yeah, 44, half of the people voted for Weah, but Boakai should not have gotten 25%. If that there is a big problem that he has opportunity to develop things, and I think he would just do it because he will be able to do it because he's been watching and watching and watching, and now he has the chance to implement his vision. and that's the political class in general is behind him. I could say, So I think he has an open field to do whatever
Dr.
he
Duke,
wants in the first
your connection is
years.
very, Dr. Duke, your connection is very kind of not too strong. So if you can probably turn off your camera, then we can have you the audio version.
Is it my connection?
Yes. Your connection is lagging. All right. So
Okay,
let me go back
back
to you. Yeah. When you come back, you can use audio only. Maybe it will be better. Or you just turn off your camera and let's have you on audio only. Carl, let me go back to you. Or you said something very important that every problem presents an opportunity. I want us to go further into that because let's take healthcare, for example, or education. In any area that we look at, we see that things are broken down. So tell me, how can a very poor health system, or how can a bad road like the one going to my hometown of Dudwicken be an opportunity? So expand a little bit more, pick a sector and tell me how does the problem there or the breakdown or ground zero becomes an opportunity.
So it's an opportunity for innovation. It's an opportunity to solve problems with new ideas. Let's look at the zoning and the organize or the complete disorganization of our city, or lack of infrastructure, for example. Because our infrastructure is almost non-existent, it gives us an opportunity to use new cutting-edge technology to apply to our country. A lot of countries have old technology. Let's look at the United States, for example. Very old technology, very old infrastructure. So they have to really dismantle things in order to modernize. Liberia doesn't have a lot to dismantle. So it actually puts us at an advantage. We can employ better standards of environmental management. We can employ higher standards and better mechanisms for getting power to people, to getting electricity, better water and sanitation. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can look around the world and see what the best options are for our environment and our situation, and we can apply those things without having to dismantle complex things that already exist. This is very cost effective. It gives an opportunity for us to do things correctly, avoid some of the flooding and other environmental disasters that happen in other countries, because we have an opportunity to learn from them and actually build from scratch. This is amazing. Same thing with our education system. We don't have a whole lot to dismantle. It's really, really broken down. We need to recreate our curriculum. This brings us great opportunities to invite innovators in, consultants in that are Liberian preferably, to come in and really say, okay, what are we going to do with our civics curriculum to help build better citizens that are more devoted to their country? What are we going to do to build, the integrity and the ethical, principles, and how do we embed that into K through 12 education? These are opportunities for us to do things correctly. When things are broken down, it gives you a chance to build them from scratch and have and build a solid foundation. So, I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic because I know in 2023, the capacity, the human capital that's available within Liberia and outside of Liberia is tremendous.
Thank you. I like that. I like that example. That's leapfrogging, like Japan, right? You don't have to change all the old. We don't have wires running from Cape Mount to Cape Palmas that we have to redo, right? So we can just go to the next step. Councillor Janet, let's look at the justice system, rule of law, right? Where sometime in the place there is even no stationery for the justice of peace or the magistrate. So what are the opportunities in the justice system? And let me welcome our guy on governance. He eats, sleep, and drink governance. Right now, I think the current administration, the WIA administration, has taken some of his ideas on transition. Congratulations, Mr. Salif. You're
thank you. Thank you. I don't know if they were listening to me, but thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to be here, to be in the midst of distinguished sons and daughter of Liberia.
Thank you.
Welcome, Edmund.
Councillor Jonah, let's look at some of the opportunities in the in our legal system.
Well, if Mr. We are left anything behind that you call legacy, that would be a complete breakdown of every system that he came in touch with. The justice and security sector is no exception in that respect. Now, what are the opportunities? I was part of the reform 2006 under Mrs. Selly, when we decided that there was a need to rebuild the justice sector, beginning particularly with the administration of justice, the competence of people. I must say, I was kind of naive to think that, look, what we needed to do at the time was to just remove most of these people and get new ones to come and replace them. Then I began to see that that was a very difficult task, especially so when the government did not have the resources needed to hire competent people in the system. So what we did at the time was, okay, can we start at the lowest level? And at that time, we had the kind of laws also that were not very, what you call, effective, in the sense that you had law to say for someone to be a magistrate. Now, a magistrate in our jurisdiction is a very, very important judicial personnel. This is the entry point. This is where you get in touch, in contact with the judiciary, if you like. And if that person you get in touch with does not inspire your confidence in the system, is broken down and sometimes forever. This person was required to just understand English. So we had scattered around the country around 350 of these kind of people. And from the audit we did, we had less than 3% who actually met the new requirement at the time to say, let the person go to have some formal training in the area of law to be brought in to mind these offices. So it took us quite a while. But the long and short of it is that a system was put in place for this kind of training. And it was supposed to be a full cycle of 6 different sessions, each lasting like 18 months. And up to the time Mrs. Sedi left, we had completed like 4 cycles. I just met a magistrate yesterday just talking about this, because I sort of had the opportunity to chair the governing board of that institute that was created. And he said to me, since that time, they just stopped everything because there was no government funding for the project. Just to give you an idea of the kind of problem we have. And I always like to make reference to those of our brethren who were abroad and decided to come back home to help us. One such person was a guy who I met during my refugee time in Sierra Leone called Zlang. I don't know how many of you may have met him. This guy came from Syracuse Law School, University Law School, and John us in Liberia after a lot of persuasion, and became a revolutionary in the system. I mean, This guy was just wonderful. First thing was work culture. He was at his office almost every day between 7:30 in the morning, while we are dragging, leaving our bed by 9. And when he did a judgment at the level of the Supreme Court, just to say, what do we need to say about the other than just affirming it? And I believe that we have such qualities in abundance in the diaspora. So we got to help to get these people come home so that they can help to rebuild the system. But the justice system, I think you heard the president-elect today, he was talking about security and the justice situation in the country. You know.
Right. Justice Jana, you want to make me abandon my dream job of becoming superintendent of Sino and work in Monrovia? Don't do that.
Exactly. Well, I agree with Carl. These are opportunities now that we have to do these things better. I'd like to see, for example, taking the one high school to say, how can we modernize and make it in a way that all others can be built around that model? Those kind of things. I think when we were going to high school, the best high school in Liberia was Tubman High School, public school. Well, I mean, unless you just can, afford it, you will not be waiting right now to send your child to a public school. So, so everything is broken down. That's the legacy of Mr. Weir. So let's now use this opportunity to start rebuilding in a way that we integrate it with innovation, new ways of doing things and that kind of thing. I think those are the opportunities that are presented by the current reality.
Thank you, Mr. Salif. We're talking opportunities here, and government governance. They come from this. They have from the same branch. So let's look at opportunities in governance. You can pick wherever. What are some of the opportunities? Because we are tired looking at problems, Mr. Salif. I know we'll come to the challenges, but let's start with opportunities.
Yes, I mean, looking at opportunities is a good thing. It's a way of looking at challenges. You identify where are the outliers of sort in a mix of challenges of all kinds in any sector. So, I mean, I think the first place to start, and Justice Janice started stating that in the previous show last week when you were last on the show, last Thursday, I believe, with inclusivity and just celebrating our diversity and leveraging. Liberia has trained people, educated people, experienced people, both in Liberia and abroad, competent, trained Liberian professionals. When I talk about us having a people problem, sometimes it's in the context of, if you compare to other countries that have massive populations, that sort of can multiply, bring Nigeria, for instance, it can change a government with fully competent, qualified people, and then bring brand new people who can even match them if not. So we are a smaller country in that context. In terms of quality, we do have people. I think that is a good place to start. It's an opportunity to really tap into where are these Liberians who have integrity, who have a strong work ethic, like the justice mentioned about that individual who had come from overseas to serve home. Because part of our problem has been to to be inclined not to be inclusive, just people who are we consider our own people or hire those kinds of people. So a good opportunity would be to reset. This is what my post, my social media post, and even this article you are referencing, Dennis, is what I've been advocating for a a well-resourced, well-run transition process that sets in place things like, for instance, you could establish an office of presidential personnel that verifies people's credential, people's experience, and whatever they bring, and you make sure that the government is well-resourced in terms of placing people in the right places that match their qualification and experience and where they think they can serve best based on what capacity they have. Is an opportunity to reset. And the second thing I will look at in terms of opportunity is really to try to rebrand our image abroad and look at our foreign service. Now, foreign policy is an area that has been neglected. Think about this. The Weir administration, throughout the administration, never ever appointed a an inspector general of the foreign service. So whether these ambassadors or these consulars or foreign service officers were doing their job or not, nobody knows no accountability. So if you can really clean the foreign service, if you can uh, resource that, because then you are inviting opportunities back to the country, foreign direct investors, leveraging opportunities that Liberia's good name in the past. Historically, we've been there. We've been at many tables. People know us. They know that Liberia is a quality country, and it's always made history, has participated. So let's reclaim that image and reclaim that image, and begin from there and begin to open Liberia for business again.
And Mr. Salif, before I go to Sergeant Johnson, one of the areas here has been we have three branches of government, just like we learned in third grade, right? Co-equal branches, right? And but as we watch them, they appear not to be co-equal. Is there any opportunity there so that three branches of government function independently but equally? What are the opportunities in that area?
Yeah, there are opportunities there. So you're right. I mean, you're alluding at the so-called imperial presidency, and that's how it is. Just because our institutions, our systems, sort of coalesce around powerful people. It's about it's personality driven from the political parties, from even these elected representatives. People, you worship them essentially. So if the new president, the new administration can signal that they're here to work with the legislature, to work with the judiciary, viewing them as equal branches of government. Now, mind you, the legislature is the first branch of government constitutionally. All right. And these people begin to assert that constitutional authority, really be legislators and run the legislature as a legislature to, counter check the executive, hold people accountable, call people to public hearings, and be really sincere and transparent and ethical about it. You'll begin to see behavior changes. You'll begin to see behavior changes. Same thing in the judiciary. Same thing in the executive. If President Boakai sets the tone when he becomes after inauguration, because we still have President Weir, and he sets the tone that, look, my administration is going to be one of integrity, one with professionals who have strong work ethics and accountability. If you don't work, you can't perform, you can't be in this government. If you are slacking on the job, you don't show up, you don't come to work, and all of that, you're using government asset for your personal gain, you're carrying government vehicle on your farm and giving it to your girlfriend or whatever, who knows what else, you are out of this government. Because Liberian people, they're very quick to conform, to learn. You do that, people say, I don't want to get in trouble. And those are, we can start from this, it's what seems to be small things, but these are really big things, because now you're talking about behavior change. You're talking about government accountability to the people, because this is a social contract, right? So those are areas that I see draw the lines of demarcation Yet you want to cooperate, right? Because the incoming will have a legislative agenda which should support their vision for the country, what the President Boakai will want to do to move the country forward. In doing so, of course, you have to negotiate, you have to cut deals with the legislature. At the same time, draw that line. We are the executive. We're not going to impose this on you. You do your job, we'll do our job. The judiciary, you need to also do likewise.
Thank you. Let me welcome Sergeant Alfred J. Johnson. He's a law enforcement officer in the Prince George's County. Sergeant Johnson, welcome. And by the way, he's a fellow Liberian from Bannersville, Ophi, where I'm from. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you. I see familiar faces. I think it was Mr. Dukley. We were on the panel the last time. I see Councillor Kambila Janet. It's good to see you, sir. Mr. Kane, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. Just to briefly introduce myself. Are you guys getting me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Alfred Johnson. As Dennis just said, I was raised in Liberia, came to America 2006. My education is all in criminal justice, from my associate to my first master's in criminal justice. I got my second in public policy from American Washington, D.C. I'm currently a PhD student at St. John's University. As you rightly stated, I'm a sergeant with the Prince George County Police Department. I've been there for close to 10 years now. And that's just my background. I usually speak on law enforcement issues when things happen in Liberia, most often on Prime FM and sometimes OK FM from this end. So that's just brief information on me.
And also here on Focus on Liberia. So
Yes.
Sergeant Johnson will be speaking to us on the opportunities and challenges in the security and law enforcement area. And also he's going to speak to what happened at the Unity Party headquarters on Monday night. There was a way I described it, but the law enforcement people say, don't say that. The police didn't tell you that it was domestic terrorism. So don't say that. So I don't say that anymore. So let me go back to Thomas before we come to you, Sergeant Johnson. Thomas, let's take a second and talk about the opportunities. Let's do public finance.
Well, thank you, Dennis. There are a lot of opportunities in the public financial management space. And this is one sector, if we don't do well in, we don't do well in any of the other sectors. If we don't get PFM right, we don't get the delivery of health services right. If we don't get public financial management right, we don't get education right. So if we do well in PFM, we do well in all of the other sectors. When we come to building roads, we'll be able to build roads, because anything that you talk about in terms of service delivery in the public sector has to do with resources. You must be able to generate the resources. You must be able to allocate those resources through the national budget. You must be able to make sure that those resources get to the agencies of government who deliver these services, and for them to be used efficiently to be able to deliver the services. So PFM is very critical for the success of any government. And historically, we have always had problem with PFM. Back under the Dole regime, between 1985 to 86 to 87, we were in a very bad position. And Dole, as a president, requested the American government to provide support on the management of our public finances. And there was this program they put together, they call, I think, the Token Project. And they got these experts from the US. They were in the Ministry of Finance. I think before then, we never had a central bank. They were in our national bank. Some of them were in other agencies. And they helped with making sure that the resources that were generated got to the government account, they were allocated well, and they were utilized well. But then the difficulty with that program was that it took authority from these local actors in the different ministries, because decision as to what gets approved and all of that had to pass through these experts. And by 1987 to 89, there was a friction in the government, and the program abruptly came to an end. And then eventually we went to civil war. When our civil war came to an end in 2003, the US government, the international community, everyone said that Liberia problem was PFM, and therefore we needed to address that. And that's how the GMAP program came in. Fast forward, since our civil war ended, every point in time, we either have a World Bank project, or we have a USAID project, or we have African Development Bank project. All of them come together to help with our public financial management system. That has to do with how we generate revenue, how we allocate those resources, how we budget, and how we deliver services. But the complication about PFM is that there is sovereignty issue around PFM. You can get into PFM to the extent where you take that sovereignty from the country and you be the one to do the budgeting and deliver the service. And so all these development partners are often on the periphery, and the Ministry of Finance, LRA, do this work. So this is very critical. The opportunities that are here is to build on the reforms that were done in the past. And some of the things that I'm saying is actually in the Unity Party platform that the party herself developed. One of those opportunities is to transition our budget process from a line item budget to a performance-based budget. Because the way we do budgeting in Liberia, the Minister of Education, we gave them like $75 million in a year, which is mostly based on inputs. When the budget process is being done, they go out to them to ask them, what do you want to do? We want chairs, we want textbooks and all of that. They calculate the cost of human capital, services that are delivered by people, and then the budget comes up at the end of the budget process. And so the 75 million or 80 million is given to them. But we are not very clear on what resource the Ministry of Education needs to achieve at the end of the fiscal year. And so the Unity Party is saying they want to transition this budget from line item budget to performance-based budget. That means if the government is going to give money to a ministry, we have to be clear on exactly what you want to achieve. That means we are focusing more on resource now than focusing on inputs. So that's very good. We also need to improve on the management of the resources at the lower level. When the money goes to Ministry of Education, what are the PFM systems that they have in place to be able to account for that money? The Ministry of Health, what are the systems that they have? And PFM has to do with laws, regulations, and policies, and a lot that people need to comply with to use those resources that are given to them. So I think there's an opportunity for us to do these different reforms, transition the budget from line item budget to performance-based budget, improve performance management from the national level to the sub-national level, improve on reporting, improve on audit, improve on fiscal transparency. And much of these things, like I said, the Unity Party has in their platform. So I think moving forward, our hope is that they remain committed to what they put in the platform so that it gets into the development plan for the next 5 years. And once they improve PFM, improve domestic resource mobilization, we can go a long way in actually delivering better services to the people of Liberia.
Thank you. Sergeant Johnson,
Yep.
we've already established here that every challenge in itself is an opportunity presented. Let's look at security, law enforcement, and everything in between there. What are the opportunities?
Well, thank you again for the opportunity to be on this panel. I think I don't want to sound very insensitive, but the incident that happened at Unity Party headquarters is pretty much a golden opportunity for Joseph Boakai to understand the scope of what he's entering into as far as law enforcement is concerned and the circumstances that he has to handle in terms of ensuring that rule of law prevails. Because that incident, there are a couple of issues it shows. It shows, number one, the lack of leadership on the part of the Liberian National Police. It shows the way the Liberian National Police is lacking in terms of crime scene management and evidence control. It shows their inability to demonstrate the level of commitment that is required when these things happen. And what do I mean? When that incident, usually, let me discuss it within the context of how we would respond to an incident like that. First off, you get a call for service that goes out, say an individual drove a vehicle into a crowd of people celebrating a political event. We know that Unity Party won the election. The first thing we hear is a political event, it takes everybody a ton of goes up because politics and social gathering and terrorism is always like that. And given what we had in Liberia with CDC losing the election, when you hear that call go out, it triggers everybody, command staff, and everybody will have to come out. Everybody coming out. First, you're establishing an incident command post because you don't know what it is. When the call for service goes out, whatever the call for service goes as is how we respond. If the call for service goes out as individual plot in group of people or with vehicle, we consider that at the very least that would be considered mass murder with multiple casualties. At the worst, it could be considered domestic terrorism. But either way, or either end of the spectrum is on, it requires a high level command response. That means you set up an incident command post, you notify every higher or up to and including the chief of police, Patrick Sudu. You notify them and they will come on scene and be able to conduct an entire investigation. The fact that there was nobody from LMP higher up on that scene is telling. It tells Joseph Boakai the challenge he has to deal with in terms of leadership. The first thing he has to deal with is to be able to restructure the entire LMP when it comes to that leadership structure. He has to make them understand that you are the face of law enforcement in Liberia. You are the people who people see. You are responsible for the day-to-day activity of the country as it relates to rule of law. If you cannot demonstrate that leadership, we don't want you. Another issue it showed was the issue of the public engagement, the public perception of law enforcement. If you, I don't know who burned the vehicle. They said the vehicle was burned down by angry mob and all these things. I don't know who burned it, but if the vehicle was burned by anybody other than the suspect or the individual who committed the crime, that's concerning. That means the public needs to be educated on what it means to burn a vehicle. Because if you burn that vehicle, you're pretty much destroying evidence. And if you destroy evidence, there is no way you can gather any evidence. You make the case very difficult for the person for it to be for the case to be prosecuted. Another thing that incident show is the information dissemination process. When these things happen, there is a reason why police departments have public information office. Because when these things happen, much matter how high profile it was, it gives people the impression that something bad is going on. It is very important then that the public information office of the Liberian National Police be on top of things to be able to disseminate the right information. Because if you don't do that, a vacuum is created. The information vacuum is created, and anything can go in that vacuum, and anybody can say what they want to say. By the time you come out to provide the right information, it becomes very difficult for people to go back and accept your information. What it also did was that it shows it tells me that people have to understand that no matter how much lacking the LMP is, the LMP is still responsible. LMP is the primary source of law enforcement, the rule of law in Liberia. We appreciate the effort of other individuals to get involved and stop the interview the suspect and all that. But there are constitutional component to this. And if you just, as a private citizen, decide to interview a suspect who just allegedly killed 3 people and wounded multiple other people, you don't know the intention. You don't know how many people are involved. If you just interview that suspect and decide to reach a conclusion based on that interview without any supporting evidence, it makes it difficult for people to accept anything else that comes out of it. Or people can say, well, your conclusion then is not consistent with what we expect or what we thought happened, so we will go and do things differently. So at some point, we all have, Joseph Wagner has to understand that this whatever happened shows the difficulty he has to deal with, but it also gives him an opportunity to have an idea of what to do when he gets to when he assumes leadership in January of 2024. So it's a bad incident, but it gives him an idea of the challenges he faces as a president of the Republic of Liberia, coming into a situation where the LMP is pretty much resource challenge and grossly inept, for the lack of a better term.
Grossly inept is or incompetent is always a word that is easily used. Mohammed is smiling because let me get Mohammed and Dr. Dukley on the opportunities in whatever area you picked, and then we're going to move on to the challenges. Mr. Sharif.
So one of the main areas right now, which the president talked about during the campaign, were the condition of our roads. Road conditions have been bad for several, I don't know how long you can go with this, right? So there has never been a serious effort by any of the administration in recent times. And we can go back to, the administration of Mr. Doe, to really make sure that, and I'm going to look at one area, for example, Ganta to Harper, or Ganta to Zwedru, right? For example, that road, that's a perennial problem. So every time there's rain in the rainy season, the road is not pliable. I mean, for what reason? This is our country is almost, what, 200 years old, or maybe, now maybe 100, about 180, 170 something. It doesn't matter. What it is that what that does is that people are not able to travel the roads. And if people are not able to travel, goods cannot move easily from one point to the other. So for that reason, in the first 90 days, as he promised somewhere, that road and other major roads have to be pliable. Now, pliable is not a permanent solution to it. There has to be a permanent solution where those roads are built in such a way that they look like the 21st century roads, right? So if you go to neighboring Ivory Coast, for example, they have very good road network. So let's learn from neighbors who have developed those kinds of systems. So in that area, that particular area, there's lots of needs to do something. What will be the opportunity? Opportunity there will be you're creating jobs, you're creating sources of income for individuals who will be employed in that sector. It is very important, lastly, so that farmers can be able to transport their farm products from the farms to the towns and cities of Liberia. So that's a tremendous opportunity for Liberia's economic growth.
Thank you. Dr. Dukle, we personnel, people that are going to be working with President Boakai, right? So I call that managing the executive mansion, for the lack of a better word. You've been in the executive mansion. You've worked with President Salif. You also work with President Sawyer. So what are the opportunities? And of recent, what we saw with Presidential Affairs Minister Nathaniel McGill, and most of the time people blame, say, oh, the president is great. It's people surrounding the president. There's always blame on people surrounding the president. Sometimes I think that's the name. But in your experience, what are the opportunities when it comes to managing the executive mansion, the people that are around the president, the kitchen cabinet? What opportunities you see that present?
It's funny that you say kitchen cabinet, because every president got 2 or 3 kitchen cabinets. You have the family that have late night drinks, and then the ministers and advisors who come for the breakfast, and then you have the one that meet at the office. But I think the opportunity for any president coming in is to set up a new standard. First you come into the office, and that the first indication of how serious you are about your job is your Minister of State, your Chief of Staff, because that person is the one who keeps the gate, and the gatekeeper can decide your agenda. If the gatekeeper is not good, you're not going to be good. If the gatekeeper is a thief, he's going to steal a lot of money, right? Or she steal a lot of money right in your face. You will never know, because you keep signing things because the president doesn't see anything except you go to breakfast. From breakfast, you get into your armored car, you come to the office, and then people are filtered to you. Everybody you meet has a problem. So the person who decides who sees you, your gatekeeper, is your eye, your mind, and your capacity. Everything that people see through that person is what you do. Because the gatekeeper can stop people. They said, protocol, I don't want to see these people today. The president doesn't know. The president never knows who's coming in, who's not coming. You come to the office, they give you a schedule. The president reads the schedule and say, no, these people, no, let's do that tomorrow. No, but that's it. You could be doing, so your gatekeeper is essential. That's what you do. After the gatekeeper, the gatekeeper can also help you set up the other places, the legal office, the communication office. Also pick the ministers, and he got to be somebody whose mind is open to everything. So that's a big opportunity that you have to set that example. That Boakai can pick somebody and say, this is a person that I can depend on, and it's also a person that Liberian people can depend on. It's hard to do because there's so many demands. But I think, the office of the president runs itself. It's like a small enterprise in itself. It's like any ministry or any agency. you have the president, and then who probably is more aspirational, inspirational than being really present. But the department, the whole ministry work itself, you have deputy ministers, you have assistant ministers for logistics, for this and that, you have press secretaries. So the presidency work well, except when you have somebody at the top, meaning the minister of state, who dictate the agenda, who set the pace of the presidency, is not a good person. Then you have a whole problem. I think that's the biggest problem. I think that's where we're going to look at Boakai and say, who is your chief of staff? Who is your chief of staff? Is going to determine your policy, it's going to determine your agenda, and it's going to determine how far you will go into your honeymoon with the Liberian people.
Thank you. Let's go to challenges, and Sergeant Johnson already spoke about the Monday night incident at the Unity Party headquarters. Let you use that as a case study to see what the challenges are. Let me go to Councillor Janet. You are in Monrovia, and this thing happened, and you told us from the beginning of the show that you met with President-elect Boakai today or yesterday. So after the incident, so do you have any update on what has obtained and what set of challenges do you see ahead of the Boakai team using this as an example?
Well, my meeting with President Boakai, we didn't discuss anything like this. You know,
Okay.
it was one of those things where we wanted to just talk about how we can move forward. You know, right now the country is going through a transition. Now, don't forget that the current administration is the CDC-led administration. The police director, the inspector general of police, is from that setup. In the first place, you know, Liberia being what it is, the first thing that people do is the moment they hear that something has happened, the tendency is for them to create their own story, not necessarily based on any investigation or critical analysis of the situation. They just hear and then they form an opinion on it. Now, up to now, I'm happy to report that, yes, what the president himself has said, the president-elect, that let the matter be investigated. Whether it was a crime, we don't know, we can't say now with any certainty. We have to just allow the people to investigate, the professional to investigate and report. So you had a problem with the police people headed by the police inspector general that to some extent were already being accused of not doing their work because they are coming from this old or outgoing administration. So there was a lot of confusion in my mind. And then the new administration, incoming administration, has a security team now that has been providing security to, you know, officials of the Unity Party or the entire campaign thing. So I'm not sure there was that harmony or between these two groups. I think that they started to work on that later on. But what I know for now is that the president-elect has said, look, let us allow the security people to do their investigation and report. Although that is something many Liberians don't like to hear, because the last 6 years has been characterized by that sort of thing. Okay, something happened, the police is going to investigate it, and then you don't hear anything thereafter. So all of these things come into play. But I believe that we have to start anew. Something has happened. What is it that happened? Let us allow those who have the expertise to be able to investigate this matter and report in a timely fashion so that we all can understand what has happened. some people say it's terrorism. So he asked him, how did you arrive at that? It was crime. How did you arrive at that? In the absence of an investigation. Or you have an investigation that is incomplete. How did you arrive at that? And Liberia is just good at this. The moment something happens, we have different narrations, oftentimes based on no factual finding
Right.
of time. Yeah, so
Because
yeah,
in
that
Labrador, they
level.
say where there is no EFBC, EFDC takes over, right? So we didn't have the police coming. But let me go to call on this one, and then I will talk to Dr.
And is
Dukley.
that here they say that should be the opportunity for us now to change?
Definitely. So let me put one of the presidents who became like a rock star at the end of the, especially in Unity Party circle, was my friend Amara Kone. So I think when the president congratulated President-elect Boakai, most of us read it from the page of Mr. Amara Kone. Less than 12 hours after this took place, here is the post of Mr. Amara Kone stating, Greg Coleman, A.B. Kroma, and Sam Gay interviewed the suspect, his wife, and the motorcyclist who took him to safety to avoid mob justice and later turned him in. This was an accident. Let's pray for the victims. I see things going on here. Number one, Amaral now is playing the public relation officer. He probably playing to calm people down. But is this, and then he has talked to former police directors and used that and say, here is the situation, this is an accident. Is that a challenge for the Boakai administration that signals some confusion in its rank and files? Call.
I think it's more of a challenge for the WIA administration than the Boycott administration. I mean, Senator-elect Kane is going to be a senator. He's not a member of the cabinet. He supported Unity Party and did a great job protecting Liberian people's votes, participating in that process, and I commend him for that. And I also think that, a lot of times with emotions flying and people not taking the time to pause and reflect and think about what they're putting out there in the public, and also knowing who they are as they put things out there in the public, is sometimes a problem. This was not a very good post. He should not have posted this. The joint security is still investigating. They said that to the public, that they should hold on. They're investigating whether they're doing a good job or not. But because the senator-elect is such a prominent citizen, his comments could taint the investigation. His comments could cause people to think differently and maybe even deter people from conducting the investigation thoroughly. He has to understand the kind of power and influence he yields. And a lot of times social media gives us this opportunity to just kind of put things out there, emotionally, just any outburst that you would have in private in the past, you can now have it on a global platform. So people really need to understand that social media is a global platform, and what you put there is forever. Someone can take a screenshot of this. This becomes a matter of public record. As a person who studies history, in my entire life, thank goodness, E.J. Roy didn't have social media, because you cannot have these kind of things happen. I mean, with all due respect to the senator-elect, I was very disappointed. He could have asked for calm without drawing a conclusion. He could have said, listen, allow the authorities to investigate this. We need everyone to remain calm. There are lots of possibilities here. But to come out and affirmatively state that this is an accident, and I was shocked. It would be as the same thing if he had said the opposite, that this is definitely an act of violence, intentional violence. This would have also been bad. So you can't do that kind of thing. Ordinary citizens, Joe, Yakpo from ELWA Junction, he can write whatever he wants to write on social media, but not a senator-elect. It's just a different standard. He has a different type of reach. and his words are credible. His words carry the weight of credibility, and he has to be very careful. All of us do, but especially people in that kind of position. So for me, Dennis, it's just very disappointing.
Yeah.
And
Let
Dennis,
me-
Yes, I'm ready.
Sergeant, you'll come. You're the expert in that area. Will come to you. Let me go to Dr. Dukley, who kind of manages stuff like this, communication. Is it? And then I thought that we're by this time heard a withdrawal of that post or something from President-elect Boakai. What in a speech he kind of sidestep it. In my view, that's why I'm asking: is this part of the challenges that he's going to face going forward?
Well, I don't think. Well, if Amara is going to be serious about his job as senator, I don't think he'll be doing these kind of things. Well, I hope he won't, because this is not his job. He's not a police spokesperson. He's not a security person. He has nothing to do with this accident. I don't understand why he spoke about it in the first place. That's my, that's what I'm asking myself. Why? An accident happened. The police is investigating. It happened at the party headquarters. So that political party is involved. The government is involved. And you're a senator-elect. I'm asking myself a question. Why do you get into that? What is your fight? What is your battle? It's like we are starting now to say he has a peace plan for the Middle East. I mean, it could make sense. He got money in Dubai, they say. But anyway, some things don't make sense sometimes in politics. There's this thing, but I don't know if it's, but okay, I have the lights on me now. Whatever I say makes sense. But then you don't conclude something before it's concluded. We still have a nation. We still have a police force, either good or bad. They do the investigation. Sometimes they arrest people. Sometimes they find things. Sometimes they don't. But there are good people in the police. There are very good professional people in that police. Some of them were well formed. Maybe they don't get away. They don't get to do what they want to do because of the political system they live under. But they are very good police people in that country, well trained and well prepared to do their work. But I don't understand. No, my point is I don't understand why Amra was talking about. How you conclude something? It was an accident. Are you God?
And can I say something really quickly, Dennis?
Yeah, he said he talked to Gregory, A.B. Kroma, and somebody else.
That was the part I was going to say.
Yeah, but definitely, But why not A.B.? Why A.B. didn't speak? Why the people who did the investigation didn't come up and say something? Why do they have to report to him for him to come up and say this is what happened?
Why are Gregory, A.B. Kroma, and Chris Massaquoi and Mark Ambler talking, investigating this in the first place?
And even
if they talk to these people, they don't have the authority. They're former officers. This is very strange. It's okay if they interview him, but to present it as if he's the one that they're in charge was a problem for me. It's not the way we should be functioning.
But let me add something else. I think you have to look at this. This is just a symptom of things to come. That people from the former government think that Boakai coming back to power is their return to power.
Yeah.
Boakai is a new government. He's a new person. He may have used Unity Party as a vehicle, but this is not a leaf government.
Boakai is not even a government yet. He's not. Boakai is not a government yet. It's not.
It's not even in the government yet. But people are taking ownership of something that doesn't even exist. People are taking ownership of Boakai government. I can hear it everywhere. Everybody is like the successful baby. Everybody is a good father. Everybody is a sponsor. And now we have this syndrome. And this is just a symptom. This is what is going to happen. Everybody who was left out in the LN government will think that they have ownership of this new administration and they have to set up. I say, no, my friend. Boakai is a new guy. He's a new president. He's going to be a new person. He's going to set up a new system to fit his schedule, his agenda. You may not be part of it. I heard he said when he launched his committee last night or 2 nights ago, he said Okay, I'm going to tell you something. Don't think because you're part of this committee that you're going to be in the government.
Thank
Okay,
you,
I'll stop.
Mr. Salif. And that's the politics I was talking about in the government, right? Where some say, well, maybe this is a way of calming the situation, because there may be people who want to use this to say, oh, there is and I take the way I describe it when it happened on Monday. I call it domestic terrorism. So what people told me is, hey, is something like this that Amara is trying to avoid. That if there is something like people are describing it as terrorism, there may be people who will react, and then someone will come from somewhere. Well, this is violent, this is chaos, and so that is going to stop the transition. So Amara is trying to run ahead of this and do this. Okay.
Yes, he has a platform, a very large platform, given particularly given the role he played in the 9 minutes of the campaign leading to the victory. And so he's still riding on that wave. He's making a lot of public statements, appearances, and such. So he's riding high on that wave. However, in that kind of fluid political context, one has to be careful. I can understand why he might have tried to do is to say, well, listen, I have this platform, people will follow me, it's very large, and this is a potential flashpoint for conflict, for broader conflict. There's people are insinuating that this was terrorism, this was intentional, and so maybe I should say something to calm people down. That might have been, good intention. However, Unity Party is a political party. It has a structure. It was their party headquarters where this celebration was going on. This thing happened. They have a hierarchy. I think they have a spokesperson. They have all kinds of. There's a chairperson. So they have people who could speak with authority to address the tragic incident at their headquarters. Although they're not yet the government, like Justice Janet just said. I mean, President-elect Boakai and Vice President-elect Kuhn, they're not in office yet until they're inaugurated January 20th, I believe. They're still in transition mode and forming and things like that. There is a government. There is a president. There is a police, a minister of justice and a police director who can, pass orders for these kinds of things to be investigated. And I think what makes it worse is what you have pointed out. Senator-elect Conner is a senator-elect, will be senator soon, now in the executive. And then bringing in, never mind A.B. Krumah and Coleman and all of them, they're very trained law enforcement personnel and professionals that know what they're doing. If Mr. Conner, Senator-elect Conner, had sort of clarified somewhat to signal that, well, in the context of the transition or the incoming administration or even Unity Party, this is where A.B. Krumah and Gregory Coleman and all come in. At least that won't suggest that they're usurping governmental authority that they don't have. Because essentially the government could, if your action leads to something and that a government, you're obstructing government operation. In America, these are the kinds of things that charge people for, even amount to a crime of some sort. If your action sway law enforcement or cause something, obstructed justice and led to something, they'll say you obstructed governmental function that you did not have or that you do not have. And so I want to assume that the senator-elect was well-intentioned. However, the criticism that we see that he's receiving, people have reason to criticize that. I think he should have exercised caution in this specific with this particular post.
Right. Mr. Sharif,
May I add something?
Yeah. Okay. Let me come to you, Councillor Janet. Is it, they say, is it that Dr. Dugley alluded to that, hey, this is our time. Unity Party is back. And so, we see A.B. Krumah, we see these people around Mr. Boakai, and that's where I thought Mr. Boakai should have said something about this, right? I thought this is intentionally undermining, you know, the Boakai, the incoming administration, or he's so used to the limelight that he doesn't want to get away.
Well, I see this as one of the challenges that the incoming administration is faced with and might face until it gets into power. You know, all of the people that were named by the senator-elect, Gregory, A.B. Krumah, Sam Gay, these are professional law enforcement people, but none of them has any authority at this point to even engage in this matter. They have no authority. And when you're doing law enforcement, the first thing you ask yourself is whether you have the authority to do what you want to do. So for him to even refer to them that these are the people that do, I think that was just a misstep. And we have to be careful how we proceed, especially during this transition.
Sergeant?
Yes, just to before I make my larger point, just to piggyback on what the counselor just said, these are professionals, and it makes it's concerning because as professionals, they should know better than to even get involved in the investigation to the point that they are interviewing the suspect. You know what I'm saying? To the point that they are interviewing this guy. You have to understand now, the dispensation of justice does not stop at arrest. It goes all the way to prosecution, incarceration, and all that. And in this process, evidence gathering, there are rules and there are rules of evidence gathering. This guy is also clothed with constitutional rights. He has the right against self-incrimination. He has the right against unusual search and seizure and all these. And these things, that interview kind of constitutes a search and seizure in a way. For you to be interviewing somebody, you are not close with the authority. You don't have law enforcement authority to interview this guy. So whatever he tells you, if you act upon it, if you use whatever he tells you and gather evidence based on that, those evidence could be excluded because you are not close with the authority to interview this guy. But to make the larger point,
before you come to that larger point, does this mean that Amaral may not be telling the truth because these guys are professional? They wouldn't have gone to interview the suspect?
No, I don't think Amara is not telling the truth. I believe knowing Amara, the low knowledge I know, I don't think he's not telling the truth. I think that everybody said his intention, he was well intentioned.
Yeah, but
do
you think Gregory and all these people interviewed the suspect really?
I mean, I don't have anything to say otherwise. If Amara said the interview, Amara has shown some level of credibility that makes her to take his word to be credible. So if he said they interviewed this guy and these guys have not come out to say anything to the contrary as to what Amara said. So at this point, we will believe that they did interview the suspect and they concluded. But again, even if they interview the suspect, you cannot just go by some other words. Take for example, if I'm in a room, when I was a detective, when I'm interviewing somebody and the person gives me that information, I will go and run the information and double check it. I'm not taking the person's word for it because that person is in that room because they engage in a criminal act or they're there for a reason. So I'm not going to take their word for bond. I have to be able to cross their word with whatever evidence I have, and if it's not consistent, then I can come back and hold them to their feet to the fire on that. So if you're just going by the mere word, and I'm sure it was just his words, there was no real thing that say that, oh, he didn't present any strong evidence to say, oh, this is what happened that made him to reach that conclusion. But all of these things happen because of LMP's response time and their approach towards incidents like this. This is not the first time. We saw the situation with Gifty Lama and Abba Peters. We saw it with what's his name, Tobo Yinswa. We see with all these guys. It reaches a point where even if there is no criminal involvement, there is no crime, people create it creates the perception that there is crime because of the level of response they have towards these things. There is a strong argument can be made that the Gifty Peter and the Gifty Abba Peter and Gifty Lama incident could have been a genuine case of accidental death, but the manner in which it was handled create serious suspicion. And we're seeing it in this situation again. Like I said, if LMP, this call for service, if I'm telling you, if this call for service had come out in PG County, I'm telling you, an entire incident command was going to be set up. An entire incident command was going to be set up. You're going to have the chief of police. Everybody was going to be on scene because that's how the call for service came out. And when we get on scene, we investigated. We decided, oh, it was not as we thought it was, and we reduced it, we downgraded it. But we always approach it with the level of seriousness that it came out with. Now, even if this is not a domestic terrorism or something like that, there is still negligence here. There's still criminal charges who still come up because this guy engaged in a negligent act, possibly. Maybe he drove a vehicle that he knew the brakes were not working. He didn't check the vehicle. Was the vehicle inspected? Did he have a license? So all of these things could be the basis for which he could be charged for negligent homicide. So there is a possibility for criminal charges to be brought up against him. Another issue is LMPs giving journalist access to this guy. I watched the video today, and LMP allowed the journalist to interview this guy. And I'm saying, do you understand that by granting journalists access to this guy, anything the guy says in any serious country, anything the guy says, that his lawyer could suppress it in a suppression hearing, because you are subjecting this guy to interview that he's been interviewed and there's no lawyer around. Did you advise him of his right? You pretty much put him in front of the press. He didn't go there voluntarily. You availed him to the press. So whatever he says now, it's almost the LMP is allowing him to say these things without his lawyer present. So it's about the entire system. And Joseph Boakai he's inheriting a system that is pretty much difficult to deal with. The information dissemination, the way they handle the scene. Who burned the car? Where was the car? And I heard when I was watching, somebody call me, a journalist called me to have my view on it. And I said, who took the car where it is? He said, oh, LMP took the car and put it somewhere else. I said, did they process it? Did they see anything? Who burned the car? Nobody can tell who burned the car. So it's the challenges are too many. But people have to be careful how they approach this situation, because if you're not careful, the intention you have, no matter how good it is, could spoil the entire case.
Mr. Sharif, broader challenges that this present.
This particular incident?
Yeah, especially when it comes to security, when it comes to communication, when it comes to what the LMP needs to do.
On the night of that incident, when you call us here, I call for calm so that we can understand, so that the security can do its job. I mean, this was criticized, and I expected that. Emotions were raw at that moment. But what this tells you, the bigger story is, the nation beckon for leadership. Go back to the point that I made. Where is the leadership from? Keep in mind, George Weah's administration is still in office. We still have a government.
Right.
Our security expert alluded to that point. We still have a government. We still have the LNP, fully in place, and they're still being paid. Where are they now? I mean, we haven't heard much from them, if anything, right? So in that moment of vacuum, you're going to have situations. And going to the senator-elect's communication, I want to believe that it was very well intentioned, because when you have a situation like this, we don't know what the intention of this was. And before it's all known, you're going to have individuals who might want to take the law into their own hands and derail the transition process. So if I'm looking at it, I probably look at it from that viewpoint. It might be a way of deterring any kind of situations that will arise. Last time I made reference to, we can't be the Central African Republic several years ago, where people are going against one another, without due process. And so it's part of this is troubling, because we don't have the leadership. Where is the president? Something I heard is that the president said, well, these were UP supporters. Throughout the election process, all of the violence that occurred from Lofa County to Montserrat and all these different places, we don't know, where is the outcome of those investigations? We don't have anything. And so, these things fester, they go on.
So Mr. Sharif, so in the absence of that, should we have a senator-elect concluding an investigation? What sort of well-intentioned can that be?
I think that the senator-elect is a very intelligent man. He knows what he's doing. I think that he's going to come back and look and revisit this. Cole says something which is profound. If he did this as a private citizen, no big deal. But he's a very prominent Liberian and a prominent person on the campaign, and so that made a big deal. That's why we're talking about it now. I'm sure if he had said, this is in my private capacity or something along those lines, maybe it'll be different. But I'm sure he's going to come back. Something we're probably going to hear something, before this is all said and done. I just want to look at the intention of it, because when this occurred, emotions were raw. But no, I mean, this certainly, I will stick to my point. Let's give the security authorities the opportunity to do their investigation. So the question then is, how long are they going to tell us something? When are we going to know something? Listen, we're never going to hear from the president, okay, of the Republic of Liberia. Right now, we still have a president, outgoing President George Weah. We're not going to hear from him. So when are we going to hear from the director of police? When are we going to hear from anybody? Moses Carter, anybody? So come out and tell us something. For me, and then the other thing, we're pounding on this. I don't want us now to try to create a divide in the Unity Party coalition, to use this to say those other people think that they're going to come in and run this administration. It is very, very too early to speak of just to speak of the coalition in a manner that will bring a disintegration of the coalition. I don't care what we think and say. This is still a coalition. This coalition must hold together, for God's sake, because we don't want to go back to a situation where the coalition has fractured and now there's discontent 6 months down the road. So that is what we're looking at.
Thank you. Thomas, I want you to conclude on this.
Just a Moses Colley thing. They had a press briefing yesterday, actually.
Yeah. The LMP did.
The LMP did.
Okay. Right. So Thomas, is it the chick that's going to turn to a rooster? You can spot it even when it's 2 days old. You see, when they're around the, I used to beat, right? So when the hen with the chicks around, that little chick that will climb on the mother's back, you can tell right away that will be the rooster. So from the way things are going, the way information is coming out, Mr. Sharif talked about, hey, don't drive any wedge in the coalition. Are those not early signs that maybe people are doing things maybe for their own glory? Because look, the last sentence, this was an accident with an exclamation. What error intention can be in that?
Well, a lot has been said on this, but like Mr. Johnson was saying, the question that came to my mind was, how did Gregory, A.B. Kroma, and the others have access to this suspect? Was he in the custody of the police when they went there and the police opened corridor for them to speak? Or the police were absent? Because I think based on what I follow, the story is that the guy because the Unity partisans were saying it was kind of staged because he got down the road and he got off from the car and a motorbike picked him up. So their story was that this has to be plain. That to an extent, the bike rider was waiting for him to commit the crime and then he could take him off. And then Amara is saying that the story is that the bike rider took him off because he was avoiding mob justice. So is it between the time that he was still out there, that the police had not taken charge of him, that AB and the others went in the middle? Because it would be, difficult for me to imagine that he will be in police custody and the whole structure is in place and these people go and interview him when the new government has not even come into being. So it's just a kind of difficult situation, and I agree with everyone else who have made this comment. I don't think the senator-elect should have put this statement out. Everyone is kind of annoyed with him by actually concluding an investigation that has not started. using the exclamation mark that you just referenced. Like others have said, it could be an intent to calm the situation down, but I think he could have just called for calm rather than actually going into the merits of the investigation. Because the difficult thing about this for me was that we had just gone through an election when the whole world was celebrating us because an incumbent has been defeated, and he conceded even before the election commission had come up with the final result. And so just before the world will celebrate us, then this accident comes into play, almost being framed as if the opposition or the ruling party is not happy with the way they've been defeated. So it became very crazy. And the senator-elect putting this statement that confuses people rather than actually calming the situation down is very complex. So I think as we are all saying, these are all part of lessons that will be learned as the transition comes on board and people actually go into the branches of government where they will be required to do their daily work. I think this will calm down when the structure actually is set in place. But I think at this point of transition, it's just too confused because Amara is still like the spokesperson. He's come from the war room with a lot of capital because he had the election commission in check. And we are all on Facebook trying to refresh our pages to see what Amara has said. It's just a kind of crazy situation that we are in at the point in time. But I think the message has gotten to him. Everyone is talking about it. And I don't know whether he's going to withdraw it or not. We look forward to see what is going to happen. But I can just call on the police, like everyone has said, maybe to fast track the investigation and to constantly inform the public as to where the investigation is going.
Hey, Dennis, quickly, let me just step in. There is this tendency for there are different kinds of investigation. But there is this approach LMP has towards investigation that makes it seem like they have some sort of special counsel privilege and they have an investigation that goes on for years and years and years. This is an incident that happened. This is a quasi criminal investigation. Within 24 hours, you should have enough leads and things like that to be able to come out to reach some sort of conclusion. Not necessarily a conclusion, but to give the people updates to what happened. This is not an investigation that you go on for 1 month, 2 months, and you come up with a report. Because there's a possibility the criminal charges could come up. But LMP approaches everything with that snail pace. Like, oh, we investigate in 4 or 5 months later, you come up with an investigative report. No, this kind of investigation, you already have a suspect. You interview the suspect. You don't need 4 months to determine if the suspect should be charged criminally or not. You don't need 4 months. Most time, maybe a week. And say, well, he's going to be charged criminally. If frankly, there is a chance that he could be charged criminally because if you can prove that he drove a vehicle that he knew the brake was faulty, or he behaved in a negligent manner, he could be charged criminally for negligent homicide. But you don't need 4 months to determine that. You don't. Even in Liberia, you don't need 4 months to determine negligent homicide. So LMP should stop approaching investigations like it's some sort of special counsel thing that goes on for years and years.
Thank you. And it's
may I make a
hold on 1 second, Councillor. Jan, I want us to move on. But it's confusion, and I don't think Mr. Connor would withdraw that because even the misspelling of MOB, which is MOD, he has not even edited that. So I don't know what's the intention there. And for the suspect to run in the arms of Unity Party supporters, I believe, because the AB command, the QOB, that they will be the one to investigate him first before the police. I really wonder if he's saying the truth, but I have no reason to doubt what he's saying. And we will go to the challenges, and we want to hear from President Weah. But let me give Councillor Jana a few minutes before we go to President Weah, what he says.
You talk about the challenges. I think I listened to one of the programs you had. I didn't participate in it as a panelist there. I think Mr. Selly talked about Mr. Selly issuing some executive order to give some legal framework for transitional process in Liberia. Yeah. I've been trying to check out to see what we can find here to see how we can help ourselves in this kind of situation.
Mr. Selly has it.
Yeah. the moment the elections were declared to go to runoff, it would seem to me that the proper thing at that time would be for the state to provide adequate security to the candidates, especially the presidential candidate, the incumbent as well as the challenger. What we saw during the process was that generally these people had their own privately arranged security. I didn't see much presence of Liberian National Police or whoever being provided for these people. I don't know whether it was an issue of whether they were offered and there was confidence issue with them. I don't know. But I just didn't see much presence of state security around this candidate. So these people, the Gregory, the A.B. Kroma, the Sam Gibb, based on whatever arrangement that may have taken place, started to provide some security advice, security protection in that quasi-private arrangement way to these candidates. Now, up to today, I'm not sure whether this is a matter that has been resolved. Now, I don't know whether the document that Mr. Selly talked about addresses this kind of issue. But these are some of the challenges we have. So you have people coming in, taking charge, especially when it happened at Unity Party headquarters. So they assume the authority that they never had under the law. So like the sergeant was saying, so whatever they may have done there is something that we have first a big problem in terms of admissibility in the code of law. So these are some of the challenges I think we'll be facing until the president takes over. And then we sit down now and see what we can do, at least do something that can guide this sort of transitional process.
Thank you. So talking about challenges, I think, I said is 3 areas we're going to be evaluating. We're going to be looking at President-elect Boakai very keenly. Number one, his appointments. Who are those that he's bringing around? As Councillor Janet said, is he going to have a broad base, people from the diaspora everywhere? Or is it going to be this kind of political, I call it Somalia, where people, warring faction will come together and to have peace. In Liberia now we say political party. So people say, hey, that's our time to eat. Then secondly, what standard is he going to set? Is he going to say, well, everybody in my government going to declare the asset and report it? We're going to do XYZ investigation to do a review a system. And what will be in President Boakai's first budget? These are areas that I'm keenly looking at. So talking about challenges, we will hear from the current president. In fact, he gave some clues as to why he lost, what will be his litmus test to see whether the Boakai government is going to do well or not. And let's take a listen. And he delivered this during a sermon at Boakai.
So all the members of the coalition will listen to even the Joseph Boakai that are called and say, you know what, we can continue to keep our point down. With the number we have here, looking at the rats, innocent people, then they will take the country back to the dark days. Because of the peace that even our government did not go after him. Because of the peace, we did not battle anyone. We need to keep the peace. We will be here to be opposition. And of course, that's the politics. Democracy, we're going to keep his feet on fire. Just as it did. You know what I'm saying? They protest freely in this country, they got water, they got food. We will see now if we are protesting freely, we'll get water and food. But if there's no water and food, there's going to be harassment, then they will know that they are not the right people to be protecting the democracy of this country. So, fellow partisans, Liberian, again, keep your heads up. I see a lot of people say, oh, Papi, I'm crying. Do not cry. I understand your effort. A lot of people dash your effort. But continue to live. Let us live the way we were in opposition when we came to power. Everything was good. And I can guarantee you that in 2005, 2011, where were you? In 1018. I will still be here doing the same thing that I was doing for you. When I was in opposition, I was paying your school fee, I was paying your rent, I was giving money for your businesses. I am staying available with you. So, do not be deterred by what has happened. What happened? We have let ourselves down because we refuse to understand that we were the bigger picture. We found people that are insignificant and we get angry at them, and then we were vengeful, but then we used that deadly spirit to break everything. So, disenchanted, you came back home, but when you came back, the message already was with the other people. You label us, you label the party because you're angry, you laugh on your party, you protest against your party, and keep on time because you have an issue with them, you run to us. Let us stay together now so we can regain power. Yes.
The president presented some challenges that, okay, a way to test whether the Boakai government is doing good is if you're protesting and they don't give you food and water. Looking at what the president said, what are some of the challenges, Mr. Salida, with the incoming government, especially if you're not giving the people food when they protest? No, I'm kidding.
No, I think their rights will be respected. I think President Boakai will, when he comes to office, respect the Constitution and the law.
And don't go after people, he said.
Yeah, that's kind of what they're saying. But if you look at their own standard, though, they always said that under President Weah, there were no political prisoners in prison. But there are human rights violations. I mean, these unsolved murders. That young man that university student who was brutalized, nothing happened. Some political violence. We've seen skirmishes. We're seeing extra judicial killings that were not. The investigation is still ongoing. We don't have any conclusion. No prosecution, no real serious outcomes of these closure for these families. So the president can now say, under our leadership, everything was it's a honky dory. As they say right now, we'll hold their feet to the fire. People try to hold their feet to the fire. You became what was the name the gave them? You are enemy of the state or something like that. Yes, I mean, when you are in opposition, your job is to try to ensure that the ruling authorities, they do what they promise to citizens. As a citizen, you can speak up. I think it's just appealing to his people to stay calm, to go back to the base, to go back to the drawing board. That's kind of what I'm reading in that. I don't think that is some kind of edict or directive, somewhat direction to the incoming administration as to how they're supposed to govern and what they're supposed to do. What are these? There's no litmus test in that thing. It's essentially saying when people demonstrate that we just more than respected their rights, and we even fed them, we gave them water, and so we will expect similar treatment. That's not a requirement.
Thank you. Carl, this issue of audit or maybe going after people, Would there be a challenge in that area if the current government or the incoming government is trying to investigate and maybe audit past administrations with an S?
I mean, we have a general audit commission. So audits are a routine process for government. They're not something that we do when we feel like it. So every government agency, as a matter of law, should be audited regularly. So every government agency, whether it be a state-owned enterprise or a ministry, every organization and sub-organization within the government of Liberia is supposed to go through routine audits. So that needs to be established, because what I see a lot of people acting as though audits are something that you do only when you take over a new administration. So the GAC is a continuous and a consistent institution within the government. It shouldn't just change because we have an election. This is not a revolution. It's not a military junta. This is a change of administration. So the audit process should be ongoing and routine. Incoming leadership should be able to review the books. This should be part of the whole transition process. Let's see what was already, audits are not about finding things wrong. It's about making sure we're following processes. And so if there's any kind of issue, then you go and investigate the issue. So this idea that, there hasn't been audits is just strange to me, having served in government. I mean, you have mock audits in government. You have where the people from GAC will come and they'll sit down and they'll go through everything with you. And are you all following this rule? Let's see your policies and procedures. Let's see if you're following the rules. Can you show me how you go through the process of dismissing a civil servant? Those kinds of processes are audited. So audits are not witch hunts. It's part of the mechanisms of running a government responsibly. So, to think that past administrations don't have audit reports from the GAC is just bizarre to me. So it's something that I think the word audit is politicized by people who don't understand the routine process of how governments function. And yes, I would be shocked to find out that, there wasn't any audit at all of any past administrations. It makes no sense based on what I know. So if there's some other type of audit that's a witch hunt, I'm not aware of that. It would be irresponsible of an incoming government to not look at GAC reports and ask for further clarification, investigation in areas where they see any kind of discrepancies. That's all.
Thank you. Councillor John, are there some cases that need revision by the incoming organization? Like, I don't want to, some of these things have already been concluded, because I look at like the $100 million drug bust, stuff like that, to say, okay, let's look at this again. Or these things have already been concluded. But will there be instances where the incoming Boakai government will kind of look at some cases that have already been adjudicated, or some that are pending, like in the case of the Gloria Mosul Scott case? Like, okay, let's open this and go to the bottom. What will be the challenges in that arena?
Well, firstly, the issue of audit, like I would say, is a requirement under the law. So if you want to be a responsible, effective government, then you don't have an option. You have to follow the law. So you will review, and where you have need for further investigation, of course, you will do that. And if that leads to prosecution, that's the way it's going to be. And no government that will call it a responsible government will want to shy away from that. Now, when it comes to criminal cases that have been concluded, there are some difficulties there. If they have been concluded through regular court proceedings, and they have been concluded, there's verdict, there's judgment, unless there is something you can show in the Constitution, which I'm not aware of, those cases are concluded. That's it. Done. Take, for example, people make reference to the drug case you just talked about. That drug case was concluded, as far as I know. They went to court. There was a judgment. Whether you believe it was proper or not, that's a different issue, but it was concluded. And that case is done. It's finished. I don't know how you can bring that back. Samukai case, whether you like it or not, that case was concluded. That's it. It was concluded. Now, we don't have a system where you can come back and say, can the court go back to review this? The review process is laid out in the law. And it's that process you have to follow. I believe that the president, the incoming president, will have a lot of work to do in this regard. Look, there were audits done even in the administration the Vice President Boakai served.
Yep.
I'm aware that there were concession agreements that were signed, concluded, and according to some reports coming from our international partner, most of those things were said to be very wanting in many respects. Are those things you want to take a fresh look at? Well, those are issues that the new administration will have to investigate and look at and see what role they can, what they can do to make those probably a little better than they were concluded. I'm aware right now that certain things have been done as policy decision taken by this outgoing administration that definitely will have to be reviewed. And it's within the statutory and constitutional competence of the new administration to do so. Now, what is good about the law is that whenever the government tries to do something and you don't believe that they have the authority to do so, you can challenge it in a court of law. I can only hope that the judiciary we have now will be something that, because the president has talked about security and legal reform, I will hope that the reform will be comprehensive in such a way to cover most of those things that are currently challenges that the administration is faced with.
So, Councillor Janet, in terms of in the issue of your case, right? You went to ECOWAS and ECOWAS gave you judgment. Would that be something that the incoming administration can look at? And then when the judgment came, when you brought it to the country, I don't think anything was done. The same with the case of Nancy B. Doe, the former first lady. Are these things that the incoming government can look at?
No, but those are not concluded matter where a judgment has been issued by a court of law. It is addressed to a party to comply. Where there is no compliance, then that matter is still pending. So in the case of Nancy Doe, a judgment was entered by the ECOWAS court. The government just decided to disregard it, as it was the case with Isaac Jackson. Those are things that you can go after. But you made reference to a criminal case that was concluded in our court, the drop case. Now, I don't know how you can go back to resurrect that. Those are challenges because there's something in the Constitution that doesn't allow those kinds of things.
Thank you. Sergeant Johnson, in the case of these some of these murder trials, is there going to be some of those challenges too, which we talk about the auditors, the one in Labrador we call 3 missing boys and all that. There's some of these cases that the incoming administration can go after, or some will be they'll present a challenge as well, just like Councillor Johnny explained.
I mean,
No,
like
that's not what I said.
yeah, because
I
that's
was
how
talking about a case that has been concluded.
Yeah, the council is talking about cases that have been adjudicated on, judgments have been reached, like juries have, like the drug case, the jury came out, they came up with a verdict of not guilty. So,
Exactly.
I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but there's this issue of double jeopardy, that you cannot go and prosecute them again. They were found not guilty, they found not guilty. But when it comes to the issue about the auditors, Tobo Yinswa, Gifted Lama, Abopides, Simosis, the three missing boys. Those cases are remain what we will call cold cases. These are cold cases. So the investigators can go back. They can go back even with the little girl that died in the fence was a princess. The little girl who had blood gushing up from her mouth and all that. Those are cases you can revisit and see if something was missed. Maybe I listened to an interview on another network of I think Lila, a girl called Lila, who was, according to her, in the night was in the house with what's his name, Tobin Yuswa when he died, when the incident happened. And I listened to her interview, it was very interesting. I had a lot of questions, and I wish I had the opportunity to ask her those questions. But that's a case. If I were in charge of LMP or if government is coming, I would say go back and review that case, review all the evidence. The Gifty Lama and Abba Peter case, I was privileged to see things in that case that others may not have seen, and I wouldn't mind them going back to it, but I think there is level of enough evidence to suggest that it was genuinely accidental death. There is enough evidence to suggest that from what I've seen from the case photo. I had the opportunity to see the case photo, and from what I've seen, I think I can say yes, unless somebody has something else to add to it. But with the Tobo Yinswa situation, I still have a lot of questions on that. The princess case, I still have a lot of questions. The Simosi situation, I still have a lot of questions. Those cases still remain open. Those are open cases that have become court cases, and the government can go back to the drawing board and do an investigation again and see if they missed something, who did not interview, what kind of evidence they passed over, and go from there. But Mhm.
What challenge would those present to you or the
Well,
incoming
number
administration?
one, the body has decayed. I think Princess is dead. Her body has turn into soil now, so you won't have a body. So whatever you are working with, you will work with whatever the autopsy report came up with, the pictures and everything. That's what you're going to have to work with. They're missing three bones. You don't have a body. They said there is a body in the morgue that has not been identified or something like that. You can start from there, but you don't have a body. But at the very least, you have a path. You have something to start with. Abba Peters, I mean not Abba Peter, but what's his name again? Toba Yinswa.
Batting? No,
Bat-
batting.
Bati Bati
This
Yuswa.
guy is somebody else. He's
I'm
still alive.
sorry. I'm sorry. Bati Yuswa case. From my investigative experience, Bati Yuswa case is a case that somebody could possibly bring up charges against a couple of people. From what when I listened to that interview from her on another network, I think it was like an hour or two. I listened to the entire interview, and something about it does not sound right. And I believe that if you do a right investigation, you can come up with charges. But when it comes to the larger issue, one of the things that happened to LMP, one of the places they lost credibility is when the incident happened at the CDC headquarters where one or two was allegedly assaulted. And it's gone up to 5, 6 years now. CDC is about to leave power and no charges was brought upon anybody. One thing Joseph Walker can do, President-elect Joseph Walker can do to establish some sort of credibility to LMP is to, at this point, try to make LMP an independent body. Ensure that their independence is not temporary. That's what happened with CDC when they went to that headquarters when that thing happened. Sako could not come up with charges. Nobody could come up with charges because it happened in CDC headquarters. Joseph Waka can set a new precedent that listen, no matter what it is, we have a responsibility to ensure the rule of law takes precedent over anything. If you don't respect the law, you can be my son. You are going to face the full weight of the law. And if you do that, you start to give LMP credibility. You start to give people reason to believe that, oh, yeah, this papa is serious about the rule of law. Anything short of that, and we'll have the same situation with George Weah administration.
Thank you. Dr. Dukwe. Challenges with everything we've stated, with the appointments, with the cases, with the criminal investigations. WWB, no, what was it? What will Boakai do? WWBD.
What would Boakai do?
Yes.
Governance is, a succession of incidents, and you manage each one as they come. No moment is like the one that you just handle. And I think Boakai, I keep saying, he has the experience. He has the experience of crisis, working in crisis government with Doe, crisis government with Ellen many, many times, and then be on crisis himself. So I think, when you start governing, problems come to you and you resolve one. The next day you find out you made a mistake. You say, okay, how do we whitewash this issue? And then you whitewash that and you wait for the next one. And the next one you handle it differently. There's no recipe. There's no such thing as saying, we have a template for crisis management. There are templates. Yeah, you can buy the template for crisis management, but it's not going to work because the situation will never, ever repeat itself. The things that crisis you deal with from day to day are always new and always demand new answers. And I think in that sense, Boakai, having been there for 40 years, seeing all kind of failures in governance, seeing all kind of problems. And I think, one of the problems that he probably know more than anyone else, by the end of the second term, the biggest problem, was this corruption and the perception of nepotism that settled the whole government by the end of the second term of Unity Party. Couldn't even tell it was Unity Party anymore. So Boakai, he lived through that. And for some of us who saw him go through the pain and difficulty of dealing with some of the issues, I think he learned a lot of lessons that he will be able to take advantage of and say, okay, we are not going to repeat the mistake of the past. I'm not going to be known as somebody who came to fight corruption and then I'll be corrupt. I'm not going to be fighting nepotism and then I'll be nepotistic. So can he do that? And can he bring confidence into the government? Establish confidence between the people and the government, that people say, okay, the government may have money or not, but we can trust them. I think that's the most important thing he can do. If he fails in that sense, then, I think we're back to ground zero or square one.
Thomas, there's a famous case here or situation here in the United States where President H. Bush, was saying, read my lips, there will be no new taxes, and that didn't happen. President-elect Joseph Yuma Boakai continued to tell us within 100 days there will be no cars stuck in the mud. Promises like that, and then when according to Alexander CPP, when they presented there, hey, these are our agenda items, you have to do X, Y, Z for us to get your support. And accordingly, Mr. Boakai and the Unity Party accepted. What would be the challenges implementing some of these things or these campaign promises and other things that Mr. Boakai has signed up to?
So I think at the beginning of the program, I think it was Carl who made a point that every challenge comes with opportunity. Equally, every opportunity comes with sometimes associated with challenges. The first thing I would say is that I think defeating Weah took an entire village. Everyone had to come on board to remove George Weah. And as they came, they brought their capacities along.
And their baggages.
Yes. To me, it was almost like the intellectual class grouping together to say, let's get Dr. George Manuel Weah out of the executive mansion. And so everyone is coming with these capacities. So one of the challenges I think JNB is going to face is to do the selections. Because this was not the case with Mr. Weah. He couldn't scratch his head about who should be the finance minister. It was always going to be Samuel Twe. If you remove Samuel Twe, who was going to go there? So he was free from that end. This is why he hardly even reshuffled his government, because he thought it was the best 11 that was on the field and they were doing their best. That is not going to be the case with JNB. I think right now the difficulty is going to be for each position, you have 5 to 6 persons who can serve in that position.
Right.
And then earlier, the point was made about the Ellen government. It's almost like the Ellen government is coming back. And then between the 6 years of the Ellen government and this victory, you have people who have built capacities, and they also want to enter the government now. So even when the appointments have not been made, we are already seeing some posts on social media. Oh, the young people, we want to be included. It's not like back in 2006 when you told the young people come and go to school, while the PhD people take the position. Now they already have master degrees. So I think one of the challenges that JNB is going to face is the issue of putting his team together. The selection is going to be very challenging. The other challenge is that when we talk about bringing the diaspora on board, that's very good. But let's not forget that the salaries have been harmonized. So people will have to take these harmonized salaries for a couple of months or years until GDP growth can improve. Right now we are growing at 4.8%. Not like 2006 to 2014 before Ebola came, we're at 7%, 7 point more. So the resource envelope is going to be limited. And to get people of quality who will require higher salaries is going to be difficult. And the thing we used to have in the government, which had to do with those resources that were in the budget, where it was at the discretion of the ministers, they could decide how much to pay anyone. It's no longer there because the salary has been consolidated. The other challenge is the issue of the work culture. It was said earlier that, I mean, people are excited. I hear people are coming together, community initiative to even clean the city for the inauguration, which is very good. But over the past 6 years, the culture of working our ministries, agencies, and commissions kind of changed. There were hardly senior executive meetings. People were not even writing their names in books when they came. So to revert them back to that culture of actually being accountable as individual civil servants is going to be a bit difficult. The other one was those who entered the civil service between now and 2018. Many did not even take the CSA exam. We don't know how competent and qualified they are. So to deal with all of these difficulties is going to be difficult. In Front Page Africa now, I think there's a story attributing kind of demand from Senator PYJ that he wants Nimba people to be included. He wants 20 positions. So all of these things are going to be really complicated. JNB needs to find a way to be able to go through these things. And then the other thing is the issue of debt. I think the World Bank has this notice that Liberia is no longer going to draw down on loans that we have because I think it's past 60 days we've not paid our debt. So the whole issue of raising money from debt financing, taking a lot of debt is going to be a lot of challenge. And if you see now, we are saying that his people will demonstrate and they should be giving water and food. That means you already will have to put money in the budget for that so that when they demonstrate, they can be giving water and food. And there's an article where I think Akara Spray is already saying that on the day of inauguration, they are going to demonstrate to call for the establishment of the War and Economic Crimes Court, as well as call for JNB to audit the Weir government and all governments before him. So, I mean, there are different complications. There are different challenges. He needs to maneuver his way through. But like Dr. Duke keeps saying, he's been through this, and our expectation is that he will sail through them.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia Between the Headlines. We are discussing the challenges and opportunities awaiting the JNB government now. And so, Mr. Sharif, I want you to come, or Mr. Kane, almost there with all the things I wanted to ask you, including because the coalition that's being put together, the PYJ factor, the Northern Alliance, and everybody that came around, they want something. And then the promises that Mr. Boakai already made about no car being stuck in the road, right? Sometimes there is no road at all. How is it? I mean, those are all challenges. And if you are just joining us, you want to participate in the discussion, you will have 30 seconds each because we're almost out of time. 605-313-6004. The code is 791-403#. Mr. Sharif.
Yeah, it's funny you said the Northern Alliance. Why you didn't call other regions?
No, I only heard of Northern Alliance. That was the group.
Okay, you know that reminds me of Afghanistan in 1979, Northern Alliance. Dennis, one thing before I go to this is that George Weah spoke beautifully in his church. Looks like he's ready to move on, but I don't know if the memo has gone down to Jefferson Kwiji, because Jefferson Kwiji in a diatribe is saying that the election was stolen. Look, that's why I couldn't do this guy for another 6 years. Okay, he said the election is stolen, and I mean, all of the things that he's saying now is so different from what we're hearing from George Ware. I mean, it's hard to do 3 years with this guy, and 6 years we've had him. I couldn't do another 6. So thank God the likes of Jefferson Coolidge is going to go out there now. I don't think they come back. So yeah, so in terms of the challenges you mentioned, PYJ, and somebody that I want to credit, it's hard to believe. Yeke Koluba was out there very early on in this administration saying, I'm going to fight hard to make George Weah a one-term president. Uh, whether we agree or not, but he has had some impact in the street. I can call it by someone who's, influential in this district. I mean, you need everybody on board in terms of, trying to remove a sitting president like George Weah. So one of the things that's going to occur is that coalition, their expectations, all kinds of expectations within the coalition. So, of course, you'll have Prince Johnson making his own demands and laying down what he believes, and rightfully so, because Prince Johnson is a vital part of this coalition. So how does Boakai navigate through all of this? And because like Dr. Dukley mentioned, I mean, this man has been in public service for decades. So I do believe that he will understand how to navigate, those kinds of things. Look, what happened to the Costa situation, right? I mean, we thought he was done when he got rid of Henry Costa and the likes of Henry Costa, and he bounced right back. And look, now he's the president elect, so I'm sure that he's going to navigate those situations. So, but I'm keeping my eye out on those kinds of situations because that coalition is different parties and individuals who are going to come in with their own requests and stuff like that. And these kinds of things usually revolve around jobs, right? So it's not like, okay, our expectation is I want you to build road in Didwoken where Dennis is from, or one more high school is needed in Bible Town, in some place in Grand Jita. It is usually going to revolve around jobs. So how he navigates that, and I'm sure, I'm confident that he will be able to do that. But how he navigates that is a challenge that I'm looking out for to see how how we go forward. There are other things to look at, but yeah, those are the main things that I can think of for right now.
You mute.
I also want to look at if there will be any first lady budget, because we saw one. And how big is that budget going to be? But let me bring in our first caller here. Caller, you have 30 seconds. Time is fast spent. Mr. Evan Morris, you're live.
All right, thank you, Mr. John, and hello to the panelists. Look, I find it laughable, right, when the JNB supporters kind of gloss over the fact that you have a Prince Johnson who is demanding positions. When not too long ago, when he was sanctioned and he was made persona non grata for people in his weird government not to touch him because anybody seen doing business with him will risk, sanctions themselves. So now he's demanding openly, for position. It's an open, quote unquote, secret that he's well within the Boakai camp. They have some kind of correlation together.
Yeah.
Should the United States government sanction his Boakai administration for doing business with sanctioned individual in Prince Johnson, as they threatened to do under President Weah? Everybody was saying, yeah, you can't go to Prince Johnson. Prince Johnson is sanctioned, and those are some of the things that dissuaded President Weah from working with him. And his past reputation, which I think rightfully, even though he lost this election, but it was the right decision to not work with Prince Johnson. So when people are talking, I think they have to mention that. They shouldn't forget that Prince Johnson is sanctioned by this, the United States government, and they have threatened anyone who worked with him with sanctions to be sanctioned themselves. And then lastly, before I get off the line, the situation with the audit. And I think the Boakai camp has been kind of measured in their statements when it comes to audit. But I think that the people who are Boakai supporters, the Moadis and so forth, need to tone down the rhetoric that they're going to arrest these guys and put them in jail Well, Boakai himself implicated himself that they squander opportunities. And we've had this conversation. Most people say, "Oh, it was just opportunities." You're not talking about money. When it comes to government, everything that government does includes money. People say, "Oh, he was talking about opening vocational schools for the Gogos and they squander those opportunities." How do you open school without money? You know, there's concessions, those billions of dollars that enter the country, and we only have 150 million in our reserve. Where did all those money go? You know, so Boakai, if he wants to audit, he needs to audit his past government that he was a part of, and then audit the WEA government, no problem. But if you only audit the WEA government and neglect to audit your government that John Moore called the most corrupt government in the history of Liberia, then we'll have issues with your fairness and being balanced and unbiased. Thank you for taking my call. I'll leave it right there.
Thank you. And Evans, if you understand the audit, I don't think they work that way, right? You've got to pick up GAC report and then go after where it leads them. Aliyu Kamara, you're live.
Yeah, Dennis, I'm really enjoying the show tonight. You know, it's so calm and everybody's views are respected. I love it. You know, I may used to be one of my favorite analysts, but I think I would throw Thomas in there. The boy got common sense, man. Look, but listen, look, Dennis, I think Mr. Conner is getting in over his head. I think he's getting a little too hyper. I think the compliment is getting to him. I think his action, but I don't think he's going to do it again because for what I know, I think the United Party authority actually found at him and he knows it. They didn't like what he did. All right? But let me just say something. The CDC people are so scared of audit. Why is it? The United Party, they do a lot of auditing. And some of the records are out there. They're on the internet. So why are they so afraid of being audited? Let me show them today. And let me show us before I leave the line. The CDC-led decision will be audited in the first 100 days. There's no if and end about that. Secondly, unlike the CDC, if anyone is found culpable of any form of corruption or financial malpractices, they will be prosecuted under the Joseph Boakai administration. And let me just say this as a caveat, or let me be on record on your show today, Dennis. If Joseph Boakai hesitate, one of the reasons why some of us supported him was to make sure to put Liberia on the right trajectory. And that is not just to speak reconciliation. Reconciliation is not realistic without justice and equality. And therefore, Joseph Boakai must prosecute, and not only prosecute, he must get all of those money back, all confiscated properties, and convert that money into providing basic social services. Any attempt not to do that, before in the whole thing, we are brothers and sisters, and therefore, let's just let it go. You will hear me go against Joseph Boakai very, very strongly. But thank you for having me this evening.
Thank you. Let me take my last caller here. That's Mr. Cully. Go ahead, Cully.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
For all the panelists, and, a real nice panelist today. Really enjoy all of you. Down to my brother Alfred Jar. And, I hope, Mr. Kamara was listening to all of this because the last time when he was talking, he was bringing all those kind of jungle justice thing that he wanted for emotional justice to be applied to what unfolded at the United Party, which was not right. I hope he listened and be able to take note of, everything. But, the panel, I enjoy all of you. The input was right. And this is what we will be living up to. Our people to listen to, people who I know are in places know about things and talking about it, like my brother Johnson. You don't just come here and make some jungle justice statement or emotional stuff and things. It won't help our country. This is the time for us to come together and heal the country. And I guess Mr. Kroma own is like, this is the thing. Everybody fighting for jobs. They want to get position. And I guess he's fighting for most of those guys that he called for them to be included in the police force. That's just what I see. That's just it. But thanks, kudos to all of you guys on the panel. Okay? Thank you all.
Thank you.
God bless you all.
Thank you. Well, that's the end of our calls. Let's go back to the panel. At no time the fast spent. Sorry for keeping you too long. We will go around the horn for your closing comments, and if you have anything to add to the colors, if you want to say something, or generally, let's close with our opportunities and challenges. Anyone, you can pick anyone. Just Janet, you are all the way in Monrovia. It's late on your side there now. Anyway, they say the chief can sleep.
It's
So
going to 3 a.m. my place here now.
yeah, the chief can sleep. So we're not feeling sorry for you. But you're closing, sir. Thank you so much for coming.
Just to thank all of you for this opportunity to talk about our country. I believe that each and every Liberian has a patriotic duty in whatever way possible to help this incoming administration to be able to help the country to make the country a better place for all of us. This can be done by Joe Boakai alone. The support Mr. Boakai received over the last 2 years generally have been about their creating an opportunity for renewal, for change. And it is this opportunity now that has been created by all of us collectively that we have to make good use of for the betterment of Liberia. Everything in Liberia needs to be relooked at. Education, private sector development. When you visit some clinic, hospitals, I mean, you get feel sorry for the country. So everything needs to be done. And the resources are not there readily available. So there will be a lot of work that all of us can do and each of us can do to help Liberia. And I just want to throw out this appeal to all of us. Whatever you can do, don't just sit by and just criticize. Oh, this is not being done. Let all of us get involved, at least to make Liberia a little better. There are things I call little things that matter. Let's start, for example, those who are on the ground. We just going to work on time. You know, I still remember when we were growing up with President Tolbert, we had some kind of thing in Liberia they call Liberia Standard Time. This was a time that I think was behind GMT by an hour or 45 minutes, something like that. And yet people used to go to work around 9:30. But President Tolbert changed that radically. And he himself was the example. He left his bedroom, came down the fourth floor where the president's office is, and he was always behind his desk almost every day, work day by 7:15 or 4. As a Baptist preacher, he would kneel down, pray 15, 20 minutes, and sat behind it but before it. And when Liberian people saw that, people started going to work on time. So these are the kind of things we need to start setting this example. And when we do that, I think we'll make our country a little better. I'm always impressed with the work culture the Americans have. And all of us who live in America, those of you who are there, you go to work on time, you stay at work, you do your work. The moment we hit back at RIA, we leave it right there. And then we'll get into the Liberian way. So I hope this will be an opportunity for that change, for that renewal. And all of you should start getting ready to come back and help. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sergeant Johnson.
Yes, it's always an opportunity, more excited to be on panel with people who we've heard speak. Is humbling, and I'm grateful. I do look forward to the opportunity every time to be here if I can, because sometimes my schedule does not permit. But either way, I'm grateful. When it comes to challenges, the Joseph Waga administration has a lot of them, and they have to, from law enforcement to health, education, and all that, is a lot. But from my perspective, I think one of the biggest challenge is to ensure that the rule of law takes precedent. If you cannot do that, you don't have a lawless society. Is nobody going to come into a situation that is completely lawless. So he has a responsibility to ensure that the rule of law takes hold in Liberia. The opportunity is he has an opportunity to be better than his previous boss and to be better than the previous president. He has the chance to make actual change because he's an older man. He does not have anything to prove to anybody, and I don't think he's going to go for a second term. So this one term, if he can commit himself to fighting corruption and just doing exactly what the Liberian people elected him to do, I think he can carve for himself a legacy that will go a long way with our people. So that's the opportunity he has. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak, and thanks to everyone for the time.
Thank you. Carl?
Yeah, it's been a pleasure sharing a platform with everyone, especially His Honor Justice Johnny. One of the challenges I would like to caution everyone about, especially those of you who are going to return home to serve, is that you need to really study Liberia's laws. There's a difference between how things should be and how things are legally. So we have a tendency to think that American laws are Liberia's laws. They are not. I heard, Mr. Johnson speak very, affirmatively about the U.S. legal process and applying it to Liberia and where there's a discrepancy, assuming that Liberia is incorrect. That's not odd. That's what everyone does in every sector. One of the challenges we would have of bringing people, law enforcement officers from the States and carrying them to Liberia would be making sure that they understand that this is a different country than where you were trained and where you have experience. And you have to know what the legal processes are in Liberia and function within that law. Because you're not there to reform law, you're there to enforce existing law. And where you think law should be changed, you can advocate for that. But that's a problem that I've seen repeatedly, not only in law enforcement, but every sector. So it's important to understand the circumstances. There are a lot of changes that need to be made. But we have to also understand that the laws in Liberia are not exactly like they are in the United States. And this is with many, many, many things, not just law enforcement, not just the police, transportation, so many things. Once we realize that, it makes it much easier for you to function and know what laws need to be reformed and what you can lobby your lawmakers to address. And if it's a policy, it's the same thing. So what things ought to be in our minds and what things actually are in law are not always the same.
Thank you. Dr. Dugley.
Yes, thank you, Dennis, and thanks to everyone, Cabinet. Thank you for joining us and our colleagues here every day for your lesson of history. Be careful what you say about Liberia. There is a historian listening all the time. I think the challenge is there. I mean, the challenge is there, but it's also the opportunity. You have both at the same time. What will Boakai do? What kind of team he put together, and how he will stay focused on his job? And I think he will. I mean, at 78, he's not going to buy a new house. He's not going to buy, $5,000 pair of shoes because I mean, that's not his stuff. And I don't think he's going to fall for petty things. And I think the way he survived this whole process from 2017, when people say, okay, he's done. Because once you party lose elections, you're gone in Liberia. That's everybody say he was gone. But he pick up pieces together one by one piece at a time. People came and joined him, broke away, but he stayed the course, and he's here today where he is. I just want to finish by telling Mr. Elvis Morris. John Morris said Ellen government was 10 times corrupt or 3 times corrupt. He had not done a single audit. But he was still given the opportunity to do his job. So that's political maturity that I hope George Weah had when he was dealing with, DSC and LECC. Joe Molu came to Monrovia. People gave him files and this and that. You will do auditor. So he made a statement. He had not audited a single file yet. He was staying in a hotel. He didn't have a house. So he made that statement and then pick it up. Does that mean that he was right? You have not audited one single file and then you say the country is corrupt? Was that serious auditor talk? No. So don't keep. I don't think you should keep repeating that. You would make that you're not serious either. I can't say, oh yeah, you are corrupt and I have not audited you, and then you say, oh yeah, we're going to repeat that. As far as Prince Johnson is concerned, Prince Johnson is part of our politics. Everybody went after Prince Johnson. After they failed, they cursed him out. But that's what happened. They went after him. They tried. He said, no, I don't want your money. You made promises. You lied to me. You didn't give me any other thing you wanted to give me. So I'm not going with you. And that was the breaking point. And then Prince Johnson became a criminal overnight. So whoever gets Prince Johnson, say he's a saint. Whoever doesn't get him, say he's a criminal. So we got Prince Johnson for the next 6 years at least.
Thank you. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving Day. So on behalf of all of us at Focus on Liberia, we say happy Thanksgiving. In fact, our headquarters in Atlanta will be closed tomorrow in observance of Thanksgiving Day. And that's why
is that Hennessy, Dennis? Is that Hennessy you serve with turkey? You serve turkey with Hennessy? What's wrong with you?
Yes. Because I know that the sergeant can like Hennessy. So we're going to be close. So there will be no tough talking Thursday tomorrow due to Thanksgiving, which all of you spend time with family and enjoy turkey. Mr. Cannon, you're closing.
Thank you, Dennis. It was great joining the panel today. We're all these great people. We learn as we move along so that when the generation retires, we can be able to help Liberia. So I think as we all have said, there are a lot of challenges that JNB will face. One of which is I've been thinking about is when these pen riders support you to that extent, and then just after inauguration, you come and say to them, get off the street. It's going to be interesting to see how they will respond to you. So there are a lot of challenges. Putting things in order, like Sergeant Johnson said, the rule of law, and just making sure that people follow the rule of law. And even the incoming U.S. ambassador, I think, made that point that Liberia is lawless. So he will have to deal with that. As I close, I want to pick up on a point that he made in his statement today. And he said we will promote broad participation of the people, including those in rural communities, in the decision-making process. The current system of governance that we have does not allow that. It does not allow our people in the villages to be able to participate in our governance process, whether it is the resource allocation decision-making, it is the utilization of funds, systems that were put in place to be able to promote this, like the county development funds, were undermined over the past 6 years. And that's one reason I even brought this whole issue of the CDC and the Prince Johnson issue on the county development fund. So as he's coming with this broad-based participation, we just hope that they are going to pay attention to decentralization so that we can decentralize governance and make sure that our people participate. One of the things the government will easily start talking about is the issue of all of the expectations that we have. We need to improve education, we need to improve health, we need to improve transportation. The Ministry of Finance will soon start to say that we don't have the fiscal space. We don't have the fiscal space to be able to do those things. That means we don't have the money to do a lot of these things. That means we have to do a lot of reforms to be able to attract development assistance. or to generate additional resources or to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of the little that we have. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I'm not sure exactly where the development of the budget is because we are now on a calendar year. That means our budget year is going to start on January 1. Because of the election, I think the 2024 budget has delayed. I don't know if they will pass it before the end of December. If even if they do pass it, and it's not aligned with some of his priorities, including no car will get stuck on the major roads, he will have the opportunity to recast that budget and to put resources to where his priorities will be. So there are a lot of challenges, but yet there are a lot of opportunities to even do a lot of reforms to improve services to the people of Liberia, people who walk in that dirty water on the day of the launching. We hope that they will not be left behind. Thank you very much.
Mr. Salif, your closing, sir.
You know, when a leader is elected, those few first hours, first days, first weeks leading to the inauguration, the things they say, the things they do, the people that are around them, the initial teams that established, the transition team, for example, how they run that process, who runs it, how efficiently it's run and managed, uh, tells you a lot about the type of government they will have, how they will govern, for example. So, for instance, if you establish a system that is really well governed in terms of how you nominate people, how you verify their background, their qualifications, claim they're making, and things like that, how inclusive truly you are, how respectful are you of the citizens, the people who voted you in, from the little to the big. You know, for example, that today, was it today, President-elect went to the hospital to visit those who are in a hospital receiving treatment from the incident at the party headquarters, and sending condolences to families of those who lost their lives. And he actually went outside in a hospital courtyard and met with families and made commitments there and said, you know, someone spoke in our crowd, for instance, about some of these cases we're talking about. He said we will investigate. This will be a responsible government. This will be a government essentially saying of the people, by the people, and for the people. And you know, so for me, I read a lot into things like those, the symbolism of it. I start to try to understand the mindset of the people around and the mindset of this leader. What kind of leader would they be? What kind of leader have they been? I think all of these are very important. You know, and some of us have already begun our own contributions in little ways. You know, writing, sharing reflections and experiences, and suggesting frameworks and ways that we believe can be effective, can support them. If people listen, that's great, you know. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing more of. If I see that they're really seriously uh, putting a system in place whereby you know they are looking for talent because they want an effective, responsible government. They want the president elect, when after inauguration, to begin governing immediately and to be successful. I will start to know by saying again who is being called to serve, who are these people, how are they vetted, what kind of qualification do they have, what kind of experience are they matched to their experience, their credential, their training, are they matched to sectors or institutions where they will actually contribute the greatest, as opposed to somebody just putting their name on various lists and they have grade A, grade B. You know, if I don't get this ministry, I go to this, I go to that kind of thing. Um, if I start to see a lot of that kind of thing happening, then you know it will start to look like some of what we've seen in the past. And this president-elect continues, the little I've heard him talk and talk about, continues to assure us of a responsible government, of accountability, but total participation. He mentioned the rural. I was struck by that statement as well. I wasn't surprised, but I was kind of struck that that is something that looks like it's very important to him. And I'm looking forward to seeing who, what kind of government he forms and how he governs.
Thank you. Mr. Sharif, you got our last word.
Thank you, Dennis. I think government must reach out to the rural parts of Liberia. Sometimes it seems like the rural areas are forgotten. So under this incoming administration, there should be a shift in that direction. A lot has been said. One of the things that I'm happy about, Dennis, I mentioned the other show, the World Cup is coming in 3 years. And I was concerned that George Weah, if re-elected, he might abscond and go to the World Cup again and sit there for 2 months, in absence from the country. So I'm very happy. Those are the kind of things that make me. I'm very happy that you're going to have a president who's not going to go to the World Cup now. Boakai will be there. He's not going to go to the World Cup. So this means that time will be taken to do serious business for the Liberian people. I will expect that the incoming administration should, should make it clear, but the public sector is not where you're going to go to become wealthy. I think Ahmed alluded to something along those lines. Public sector, those of us, people who supported the Unity Party, coalitions members who supported the Unity Party from other parties. I think that there should be a level of sacrifice where you're not looking at the public sector as a place where you're going to get super wealthy. This is a service to country, so it should be service to the country, service to country. So I think that, the president has a good opportunity, as I mentioned earlier. The enthusiasm is there, so you can tap into that, and Liberia will be better for it.
Thank you very much. On that note, we conclude our show tonight. I say thank you again for availing yourself tonight. Happy Thanksgiving. We want to thank our viewers for those watching tonight and even those who will watch later. Always.
And Dennis, one more thing. When you put out the turkey, I think this is how you put out. I didn't see the drink that you put beside it, but you don't bring that. How will you give Muslim people that? We can't take out that drink.
No, that was not liquor. That's juice.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, that's juice. It's just that when you carry a hammer, everything looks like nail. That's why Mr. Douglas like Hennessy. On that note, let's close with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Have a good night and God bless you.
We are Liberians.